Welcome to Idlewild Cottage, a quiet place where kindred spirits can linger together over a cup of tea, savoring all things lovely and cozy. My name is Juliana, and I'm delighted to have you. Each episode here at the cottage will center around a theme. That theme will be celebrated in a number of ways, through literature, art, nature, and even some favorite movie scenes. We'll cherish the sweet and simple things of life. So make yourself at home, and I'll put the kettle on. This fall, I have enjoyed rereading Anne of Windy Poplars, and, as always, I find myself delighting in Lucy Maud Montgomery's gift for naming homes. Windy Poplars is, incidentally, located on Spooks Lane, making it a very cozy October read. I believe Montgomery is speaking for herself when she writes of sweet Patricia Gardner in Pat of Silver Bush. Pat loved to name things. It made them just like people you loved. Throughout our time together today, we'll step into several literary homes, finding that their names alone have the power to conjure up images, memories, sensations. If I say Green Gables, we immediately envision Anne Shirley. The name Orchard House brings to mind cozy scenes with the March sisters, and number 17 Cherry Tree Lane sweeps us into the magical world of Mary Poppins. Since those particular names are likely quite familiar to us, we won't linger with them today, but instead we'll take a look at several other literary homes. I thought it would be fun to introduce them by way of a guessing game. I'll list the names of the homes here at the beginning of the episode. If you like, you can pause and jot down your guesses as to the books belonging to these homes. I'll reveal the answers as we go along, and you can see how well you know your literary homes. Are you ready? Here we go. Plumfield, Pemberley, Thornfield, Misselthwaite Manor, Manderley, the Yellow House, and Echo Lodge. Okay, first up, Plumfield. Did you guess Little Women? Let's peek into Chapter 47 to see the significance of this home in Jo's life. Aunt March had left Plumfield to Jo, which made all sorts of joyful things possible. With tears in her eyes, we see Jo sharing with Marmee. Now, thanks to my good old aunt, I'm rich, at least I feel so, and Fritz and I can live at Plumfield perfectly well if we have a flourishing school. It's just the place for boys. The house is big, the furniture strong and plain. There's plenty of room for dozens inside, and splendid grounds outside. They could help in the garden and orchard. Fritz can train and teach. I can feed and nurse and pet and scold them. I've always longed for lots of boys. Now I can fill the house full and revel in the little dears to my heart's content. Think what luxury! Plumfield my own, and a wilderness of boys to enjoy it with me. If Jo imagines Plumfield to be a luxury, just what must Elizabeth Bennet feel when she first catches a glimpse of our next home, Pemberley? For yes, this famous estate belongs to none other than Mr. Darcy of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Elizabeth, as they drove along, watched for the first appearance of Pemberley Woods, and when at length they turned in at the lodge, her spirits were in a high flutter. The park was very large and contained great variety of ground. They drove for some time through a beautiful wood, gradually ascended, and then found themselves at the top of a considerable eminence. The eye was instantly caught by Pemberley House. It was a large, handsome stone building, standing well on rising ground and backed by a ridge of high woody hills. Elizabeth was delighted, and at that moment she felt that to be mistress of Pemberley might be something. Our next home finds us still in England, and again at the seat of a well-off, intriguing bachelor, Yes, it's Rochester's Thornfield. And our heroine, Jane Eyre. It was a fine autumn morning. The early sun shone serenely on embrowned groves. Advancing on to the lawn, I looked up and surveyed the front of the mansion. It was 3 stories high, of proportions not vast, though considerable. A gentleman's manor house. Battlements round the top gave it a picturesque look. Its grey front stood out well from the background of the rookery, whose cawing tenants were now on the wing. They flew over the grounds to alight in a great meadow, from which these were separated by a sunk fence, and where an array of mighty old thorn trees at once explained the etymology of the mansion's designation. Farther off were hills, quiet and lonely, and seeming to embrace Thornfield with seclusion. The sun is not serenely shining down on Mary Lennox as she approaches her new home, Misselthwaite Manor, in the secret garden. Rather, all is quite gloomy, as we see in these excerpts from Chapter 3. As the carriage passed through the gates, the trees made it seem as if they were driving through a long, dark vault. They drove out of the vault and stopped before an immensely long but low-built house which seemed to ramble round a stone court. The entrance door was a huge one, made of massive, curiously shaped panels of oak, studded with big iron nails and bound with great iron bars. It opened into an enormous, dimly lighted hall. A neat, thin old man explains that the owner has no wish to see Miss Mary, and instructs, "You are to take her to her room." "Very well," Mrs. Medlock answered. Mary Lennox was led up a broad staircase and down a long corridor. It was in this way Mistress Mary arrived at Misselthwaite Manor. The Secret Garden was published in 1911, and in 1914 it was beautifully illustrated by prolific British artist Charles Robinson. I love the way he captures both the gloom and the promise of the home and landscape of this story. So, as we shift our attention to the enchanted picture frame here at Idlewild Cottage, let's take note of his use of muted color and soft edges to bring the story to life. I'll include a link in the show notes. Mary Lennox is ushered into a home and life filled with secrets, mystery, and ultimate joy and blossoming. For our next heroine, a heroine who incidentally remains unnamed throughout the whole of this Gothic novel, the very mention of the estate conjures intrigue and suspense. The novel, Rebecca, by Daphne du Maurier, and the opening line, a classic. Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. It seemed to me I stood by the iron gate leading to the drive, and for a while I could not enter, for the way was barred to me. I called in my dream to the lodge-keeper and had no answer, and peering closer through the rusted spokes of the gate, I saw that the lodge was uninhabited. No smoke came from the chimney, and the little lattice windows gaped forlorn. Then, like all dreamers, I was possessed of a sudden with supernatural powers and passed like a spirit through the barrier before me. There was Manderley, our Manderley, secretive and silent as it had always been, the gray stone shining in the moonlight of my dream. As I stood there, hushed and still, it seemed that the house was not an empty shell, but lived and breathed as it had lived before. Light came from the windows, the curtains blew softly in the night air, and there in the library the door would stand half open as we had left it, with my handkerchief on the table beside the bowl of autumn roses. If you are looking for a mysteriously compelling read this fall, then Rebecca just might be the story for you. Equally as gripping is Alfred Hitchcock's 1940 film adaptation starring Laurence Olivier and Joan Fontaine. If, on the other hand, you prefer quaint and cozy homes, then by all means, let's turn our attention to the Yellow House, for it is this home that brings new life and hope to the Carey family, in both the sweet novel, Mother Carey's Chickens, and also the charming 1963 movie, Summer Magic. In this moment from the novel, Mother Carey and her children first arrive at their new home. The Careys walked up the pathway together, thrilling with the excitement of the moment. Nancy flushed and caught her mother's hand. "Oh, Mother D, it's all happening just as we dreamed it. And now that it's really here, it's like a dedication somehow. Gilbert, let Mother step over the sill first and call us into the Yellow House." Mother Carey, her heart in her throat, felt anew the solemn nature of the undertaking. She took the last step upward and, standing in the doorway, trembling, said softly as she turned the key, "Come home, children. Nancy, Gilbert, Kathleen, Peter Bird." They flocked in, all their laughter hushed by the new tone in her voice. There was a moment of silence, the kind of golden silence that is full to the brim of thoughts and prayers and memories and hopes and desires. Then Mother Carey turned, and the Yellow House was blessed. Anne Shirley and Diana Barry discover another delightfully cozy home on a Saturday afternoon outing in October. Their lives, and the lives of several others, are forever changed when they stumble upon our final home of the day, Echo Lodge, in Anne of Avonlea. They set out, going by way of Lover's Lane, where they found a road leading into the heart of acres of glimmering beech and maple woods, which were all in a wondrous glow of flame and gold. Well, the girls are so enthralled by the beauty of their surroundings that they make a wrong turn. They follow the road and eventually discover a lane leading right into the woods. "I feel as if we are walking through an enchanted forest," said Anne in a hushed tone. "Do you suppose we'll ever find our way back to the real world again, Diana?" Around the next turn they came in sight of a little house. Anne stopped short in rapture, and Diana exclaimed, "Oh, I know where we are. That is the little stone house where Miss Lavender Lewis lives. Echo Lodge, she calls it, I think. Isn't it a romantic spot?" "It's the sweetest, prettiest place I ever saw or imagined," said Anne delightedly. The house was a low-eaved structure built of red island sandstone with a little peaked roof out of which peered 2 dormer windows. The whole house was covered with a luxuriant growth of ivy, turned by autumn frosts to the most beautiful bronze and wine-red tints. Anne and Diana opened the gate into the garden, approached the porch under the tendrils of ivy, and knocked in hushed anticipation at the door. Well, my friends, as Anne and Diana step through the door of Echo Lodge, it is time for us to close the door on our time together today. I hope you enjoyed the challenge of recalling the stories connected with each of the homes we visited. And now, as we turn to the Psalms, let's remember the wisdom of Psalm 127:1 and consider our own dwelling places. "Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain." Kindred spirits, we are building day by day, whether it's in creating cozy reading spaces in our homes, adding bouquets of autumn glory to the table, filling the air with seasonal music, or reading yet another story to the little ones on our laps. Into each of these spaces would we invite the Lord to build our homes. Thank you for joining me today, dear ones. Please come again soon to Idlewild Cottage.